It never ceases to amaze me that modern technology provides things so easy. With the click of a button and with the internet connection and a video conferencing app, I can simply reach all the way around the world to a vast land to which I've never been, so that I may say hello and greetings to the lovely people of India and beyond. My name is Ross Valory, and I'm a former member of Journey with whom I had a blessed and long time, practically lifetime career. And I am here to speak with India's own Aditya Veera on his third season of his podcast series, Stalwarts of Music. The program and our interview will be available also on all other streaming platforms, and Aditya's program will appear on his YouTube channel at Aditya Veera 1994. And also, as I put my glasses on and read my notes, he will also the program will also be available on the Big FM Shillong and Aizawl for the Sunday primetime radio show between 5 and 6 p.m. So, as I've reached around from my side of the world, let's hang out and talk music.
Ross, I'd like to introduce myself. I'm Aditya Veera, and my show Stalwarts of Music has been a pioneering effort in the history of this country. It is the only show or the only podcast which features some of your musical contemporaries. The show has featured over 300 incredible musicians from different continents of the world. We've had some of your contemporaries from the Chick Corea Electric Band. We've had Judas Priest. We've had Air Supply. Recently, we had Mr. Dave Weckl, who did a live format when he was in India. And
Wow.
yeah, and we also had the folks from Mr. Big. And finally, I have someone from Journey to kind of add to my catalog of artists to make it even better.
Well, there you go. Yes,
Yeah,
yes. When I initially got your email and invitation, there was quite a long, long list of artists that you have been involved with, to the point where I got practically dizzy. But what I do enjoy about it is that your scope is very broad, all kinds of artists and all kinds of music. And speaking of various styles, that is the whole theme of this music that I've only released recently in my life. All of the above, my album, and there's quite a variety there. So I would like to think I'm talking to the right guy.
Well, let's find out. I have an interesting agenda planned for today. Firstly, I'd like to stick to traditions of Stalwarts of Music. Namaste, Ross. Welcome to Stalwarts of Music with Aditya Veera Season 3. It is indeed a total honor to have you on the show, sir. How are you doing, and which part of the world are you in? I see a very nice collection of CDs or books right behind you. What is that?
Yes, we are in my home office. That is, it hardly has any room for artwork because you're only seeing a part of the room, but it is full of books and CDs and et cetera, et cetera. And I'm reaching out from my home in Northern California, and I live in what is called the East Bay, inland, east of the San Francisco Bay Area, and it is 9:38 a.m. So I say good morning, you say good night. Isn't that a Beatles song? That's a Beatles song, right?
Right on, right on. I'd like to start my agenda today by going way back in time and discuss your involvement with the Cyclops Blues Band and how it all came together back in the day. How did you fit into this context?
How do I put it in this context? Okay, first, I should, well, we can go into further depth of my background and my formative years, but my first experience with rock and roll was having been invited while I was a sophomore in high school to join a little rock and roll band. And it was called Little Jimmy and the Good Timers. We did We
Mm.
did soul music and white soul music, and it was a lot of fun. And as
Right.
it had developed over a couple of years, I was introduced to Herbie Herbert, who had
Mm.
been in another competing band, but he decided he didn't want to go through all the changes and the difficulties of being a band player, which he had been. He decided he wanted to learn everything else about the music business. So he
Mm.
brought his keyboard player to our band because we had lost ours,
Okay.
and he began learning everything there was about music. So Herbie Herbert, uh, who goes a long way back with me, went from that point into his career in music production and then band management, and
Okay.
eventually was a main player in the forming of Journey, and Herbie Herbert, as a managing partner.
Okay.
In the process of semi-retirement from management, he decided he wanted to return to music,
Mm.
and had a very strong penchant and attraction to blues. So he formed this band called Cyclops Blues Band. And Herbie considered Cyclops as his alter ego, or as he used to call it, his Walter ego.
Mm.
And I helped him form that band with some other players um,
Okay.
in the mid '90s, and helped direct the recording and the arrangements for his first album.
Mm. Interesting. We've come so many decades far, and we are in 2024 right now. I'd like you
Yes.
to speak a little bit about your take on the state of blues today.
Well, my take on the state of blues, if I were just to relate to you my experience as a listener, blues has a very strong place in the media today. You know,
Okay.
Sirius XM, for instance,
Mm.
has its own blues channel, and that's where I find myself coming across on the dial to hear that. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
I have I have some experience as a blues player,
Okay.
um, so I don't know if I can speak to where blues is in the music scene,
Mm-hmm.
given I am eclectic myself, and don't don't know if I'm really a part of any genre of music, and I think that reflects in the album that you're aware
Mm.
of.
Mm-hmm.
But I think blues has a very strong niche in terms
Yeah.
of what people listen to,
Mm.
and here in the Bay Area, and I'm sure in any metropolitan area, there is plenty of avenue for blues artists to perform and to be known.
You briefly mentioned about your album. Let's talk about the topic of interest, which is your solo album. Uh, the artwork was extremely striking to someone like me. What are you trying to communicate in terms of the artwork here?
Well, you know, I should maybe begin by speaking in broader terms
Mm.
about my solo efforts there.
Yes.
The music itself, as you know, and maybe some of your audience may know, is very eclectic, meaning it the styles and the genre change radically in
Mm.
most cases from song to song. So it's a very broad
Yeah.
horizon of choices, and maybe even unconventional in the way that I've assembled the album. But
Mm.
um, the artwork, which is provided by a long-term friend and fellow musician,
Okay.
Prairie Prince of the Tubes, and
Mm.
he has been known as a very unique artist as well as a musician. And Prairie actually played with Journey in its very beginning, but
Right.
uh, what my approach to the music is anything goes, everything goes, and that might be a familiar, natural theme to the early San Francisco music scene, which
Mm.
is, hey, anything goes, and any artist or any band could develop their own style, at least new style, at least according to popular music, and it could possibly grow and be known and be successful. So the the idea about the artwork is to harken back to the late 60s and the type of artwork that was displayed. In some cases, sometimes it was hard to read the lettering, and you had to like either take some mushrooms or put on your glasses so you could read the lettering. So there was a fine line between being legible and just being artistic. And I actually chose with Prairie in developing this artwork a Sanskrit style,
Mm, mm,
something mixed between English lettering, but the stylization of Sanskrit notation. So, depending on your mood and how much sleep you've had or how much light you have to look at the artwork, you may or may not be able to read it. So I'm very, very happy with this approach that Prairie and I took with the artwork. Um, that's about the lettering. The artwork itself is a part of a theme, which was clearly said as all of the above. All of the above means all kinds of music,
mm.
and for myself, playing some additional instruments that I'd never recorded with, and also, your audience might become aware of the fact that each song has a different combination of musicians. So,
Right.
something saying something universal and many faces
Yeah.
to my music, and the artwork as displayed, I think reflects that.
Mm. Eh, Fascinating, isn't it? Like someone from so far away in another part of the world has found his fascination for font in Sanskrit, right? So, what was the impetus behind that particular idea, and why did you choose that?
I would think that the style and maybe the mindset behind that is the theme would be
Okay.
universality,
Mm-hmm.
and it reflects in all the different influences of music that I've been attracted to over many years, including Indian music. You know, I
Mm.
love Indian music, absolutely. I could detract shortly by saying that in the 60s, everything goes. Everything was available and
Yeah.
acceptable as music styles, including the music of Ravi Shankar.
Mm.
You know, I come from a background with a musical family,
Yeah.
and as many people in my age group and even younger have been raised on radio, well, I was raised on radio and I was selective about what I liked, but my
Okay.
mother had many different kinds of music on the radio, but I was also raised on phonograph.
Mm.
So the styles of music that I was fortunately exposed to as a young child are quite broad and varied. Uh, for instance, at Christmas time,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, people traditionally would play either Handel's Messiah, a very traditional and broad work with
Okay.
the big choirs and orchestras, or they
Yeah.
would play popular music. My mother would play both. At one point, we'd have the choirs and the orchestra playing Handel's Messiah.
Mm-hmm.
And then the next moment, she would have put on a Nat King Cole's Christmas album.
Amazing.
So I was fortunate in being exposed to and appreciating so many different kinds of music. So
Mm, mm.
that relates to my first solo effort, which is pretty much late in life, but um, the relation to the artwork is universality.
Got it.
Yeah, and being decidedly different in my approach to how the visual images are of my artwork, and of course the lettering. So I'm glad you appreciate that. But
Certainly.
can
Certainly.
you
Yeah.
can you read it well?
Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. Of course, it is quite legible and yeah, very
Good.
pleasing to the eye. That being,
Here's
s- yeah.
Yeah. Go ahead, please.
Yeah, that being said, I wanted to ask you as to uh, the evolution, right? Like many musicians feel that their best record or their best body of work is when they reach a certain age. Was it a conscious decision to wait until uh, a certain period in your life to put out your debut solo album? Or
That's
was
a
it
that
circumstances that led to
well,
this?
that's a very good question. I'd be glad to answer it.
Yeah.
Um, a good example of how things have been different for me over the years. All the current and past members of Journey, practically all of them, have been or had been for a long time pursuing a solo career. Uh,
Mm,
Over the years, I really didn't have interest in that. Performing and recording with the Journey
yeah.
was all encompassing for me, and yeah, I had other interests as well.
Mm,
Once when we had time off, when we were not rehearsing or uh, recording or performing, which was very extensive, I would have other interests. Not to say that just because it wasn't musical, but I began to realize about a little more than 10 years ago
mm-hmm,
that I have had all kinds of compositions, complete or not complete, that had been sitting around, sitting on the shelf
yeah.
for many, many years. And uh, the conscious effort was to finish what I had started. So
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
began in 2012 and thereabouts, selecting some of my favorite compositions and completing them and arranging them and began recording them. So it, it's uh, it's very satisfying for me. My sense of success is in having finished what I've started and brought them forward to share to bring the songs forward and to share them with the world. But as to your point, at what point in one's life is yet at his best? And I've thought about this. As I said, the compositions reach back many decades, and there were different points in which I was inspired to play this kind of music or that kind of music. Um, it, Even as I have gone through the process of recording and completing these songs, other
Mm-hmm,
song ideas have popped up because some people ask whether all of the above is the sum total of my work. Is that
mm,
complete? No, actually, there are probably twice as many songs that are currently being worked on or that I will return to. So one might think, gee, is he going to run out of those songs that are most inspiring for him? No, and I'm very happy to have realized that just by engaging and completing what I've done, new ideas and new creations come up. So uh, I can't really say at what age someone is at their peak. There
mm.
might be a pattern here overall.
Okay.
You would think, I guess, maybe when we were all younger, we're more prolific and more inspired. But I can't say at this point in my life that it's too late. In fact, so I intend to continue with the creativity with further releases.
That's incredible. I can't wait to hear more of the music. I'd like to start with discussing the album's title track. What are some of the perspectives you're trying to communicate through it?
Well, that being Wild Kingdom,
Mm-hmm.
yes.
Yes.
Um, Well, Wild Kingdom is a song that I wrote actually on keyboards,
Mm,
and the synthesizer patch for that was the sound of a calliope, which
mm,
is like a steam organ, the kind of music you would hear if you were on a merry-go-round or at the circus, as it
mm,
was in past years. And musically, it was created almost entirely on the black keys of the
mm.
keyboard.
Mm.
So as a result, musically, that's a pentatonic scale, a 5-tone scale, and it's just something that came out that way. And the song had been sitting around for a while, and I had jammed that piece as I would play the calliope parts with other musicians. So, um, uh, Wild Kingdom, I guess, plays a prominent part in the beginning of my solo project here, because
Mm.
I displayed the song to a fine musician, Carl Perazzo, the master percussionist with Santana. There
Okay.
was a time around 2011 in which Journey was opening for Santana in Latin
Mm.
America. And I was in the hotel, and Carl was in the hotel the day before we all went home at the end of the tour. And I just happened to sit down with him. I say, I've got this song. I'm just wondering what you think. He went, I've got it. I'm going, what do you mean? And he starts, here at the coffee table. And I said, well, what are you doing next week? And he says, I'm open. So it's very timely that you mentioned that song. No, not only is it the first song on the album, but it's the first song that I brought forward to complete with some fine musicians. So, uh,
Mm.
about Wild Kingdom, to me, the music to me is certainly tropical and has Afro-Cuban influences. And I would just always see something involving the jungle and tropical adventure. It's a very common name, Wild Kingdom, but I should add, uh, for the benefit of your audience and maybe
Yeah.
for you, that I have created music videos for every one of the songs on the album.
Correct.
And I should add that the brilliant artist that has produced those videos is a longtime artistic partner of Prairie Prince, and also a former member of the Tubes, and he is Michael Cotton.
Mm.
And what everyone may see on my dedicated YouTube channel is, to date, there are 8 tracks total,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
and there are already 6 music videos representing those songs. So, what to your point, what Michael Cotton did with Wild Kingdom is I gave him a basic sense of what I see, and what he man what he produced there. I think was just perfect for the song. Having said all that, I might have missed the point of your question, though.
Mm-hmm. No,
Have I?
well, no, you certainly did answer the perspective based on the title track Wild Kingdom.
Right,
Another
right.
interesting facet in the making of this particular album
Yes,
is something that you just mentioned, the music videos, right? So if one were to look at the music videos, there is some usage of AI or artificial intelligence
yes.
to kind of transform the ideas that you might have had into a visual form, right? So, how did you go about communicating what you wanted in terms of each video, and and what was the outcome like through AI?
Well, AI is just one aspect,
Correct.
one
Correct.
illustrating tool available, and
Yes.
to which Michael's done very well with. But more
Yeah.
to the point, in most cases, for each of these songs, I would be on the phone with Michael,
Mm-hmm.
and I would describe what I see,
Okay.
and then he would begin to fill that out.
Mm.
He would fill it out, and there's just been a very sympathetic artistic connection with Michael's, someone who I was only acquainted with him. In fact, I've yet to meet him.
Oh, okay.
He lives. I've yet to meet him across these 2 years that we've been working on this, but I feel like I know him. We know each other. He lives between New York and Morocco, of all
Mm.
places. But is this that there's that connection in which, first of all, he's inspired and motivated by the music. Having engaged a music video producer is one thing, but for them to be actually engaged in music, inspired by it, made it all the easier and all the more creative. So I would give him some basic ideas for
Okay.
Wild Kingdom. I said, what it suggests here is I am painting sort of an Afro-Cuban impressions. But
Mm.
Carl Perazzo and Walfredo Reyes, formerly of Santana, provided a traditional rhythmic foundation for the music. And what I see about Wild Kingdom is it's about movement. It's about relentless movement, but relaxed and fun. So he came up with the train going through the jungle. And of course, Wild Kingdom suggests, wild animals. And boy, did he
Mm.
find some. But more to your point about AI, some people have been known, I mean, AI is developing exponentially every day in terms of what the average user can do with it. But
Correct.
typically, people would just set in the program, here's the elements, these are what I want to see, and here's an image, and they would type it all in and press the button. But that's not what Michael has done. He would
Mm.
certainly enter the information, but he would continue to go back in and tweak and change certain things, as he and I would have had follow-up
Yeah.
conversations about, okay, this is not clear, I would like to include just this idea to tie together a storyline. And so Michael's approach is he goes in and he changes and he
Mm.
refines things. And so he calls it illustrating, but he's
Correct.
using he's using footage and he's using the AI tool, but
Yeah.
he sort of combines them differently.
Marvelous. In terms of collaborators, each song is a different narrative. It has got so many different musical elements. Being a musician who is very seasoned with so many decades of experience, you might have
Uh,
met like over a thousand odd musicians throughout your journey. So, what made you handpick some of the best folks to play on some of the songs? What was the impetus behind picking these set of people to achieve this outcome?
right. Well, I should first say that much of this music I had never really performed.
Mm-hmm.
I'd never really been a part of, and it stems from all these many influences that I've gathered since
Correct.
childhood. And so I consider what I've done with this album and what I continue to do with the new music is I'm painting. I'm an impressionist. These one song represents the influences I've had that weren't necessarily represented in my career
Mm-hmm.
as a popular rock artist. And
Okay.
that's not a complaint, but it's like, okay, huh, what can we say? My career with Journey was absolutely a blessing, but it's about a certain kind of music and it's about a certain signature that Journey developed. Ah, that's Journey, And here's all these other influences that have sat. So for each song, I chose musicians based on two criteria.
Mm.
Um, which musicians would be best for this kind of song? But
Yeah.
in a very practical sense, who's available? Who
Mm.
can I get a hold of? And that's the provenance of all this is that all the musicians that are on the album, which I'd like to fill in the blanks for you,
Mm.
either at the time or still live in the Bay Area. But many of these musicians are also busy on tour with various bands. So um, I chose musicians that are best suited for the music. So
Okay.
for Wild Kingdom, it's a Latin style, and the foundation of the music was with Carl Perazzo, and he
Mm-hmm.
brought in Walfredo Reyes,
Mm.
and so Eric Levy, who is really the main musical mainstay and my musical partner in the entire project, of course, played other keyboard parts besides mine on the Calliope. And I eventually cut the bass parts, which I actually did last. It's
Okay.
kind of interesting, given that for years when I played the song, I'd be playing the theme on the keyboards and then never really thought about the bass. But it obviously, at least to my thinking it fell in place last. So
Mm.
um, let's take Tomland,
Okay.
for instance, yet a completely different style. And I chose to work with Prairie Prince on
Mm.
the drums and Miles Shawn, son of Neil Shawn,
Correct.
and of course Eric Levy. So that's a good example. The the big sound, the big drums, the big chunks of
Yeah. Yeah.
Prairie's rock and roll style, and of course the elegant and soaring and powerful style of Miles Shawn, who's quite comfortable with that kind of music.
Mm.
Um, I could open up the subject to say that there are 8 tracks
Mm-hmm.
on the album. 6 of those songs are have drums, and there are 6 different drummers. So if I could take another way of painting the big picture, on Tomland we have Prairie Prince on drums. On Wild Kingdom we have Walfredo de los Reyes on
Okay.
drums. On Night Flower, Steve Smith.
Mm.
Night Flower is a song and a recording that I brought forward from even further back in time, and not a remix so much, but a reapplication of different players. On Lowrider, we have Gregorico from Sly Stone, and on Wild Kingdom, I mean, on Windmill, which is similar in style to Wild Kingdom, I consider Windmill to be a Brazilian style. That's my impression. Well, so we just happened Eric was able to contact a Brazilian drummer who happens to live in the Bay Area. His name is Celso Alberti.
Mm.
So he played on Windmill. And then there's the the 2 song medley, Incident at Nishabor by Santana and
Mm-hmm.
Senor Blue by Horace Silver, a local drummer that was introduced to me by Eric. His name is Paul Spina, and he
Mm.
played on those songs. So um, there's quite a variety of players, and this has to do with, again, selecting the right musician for the song, or having been fortunate that these people are available and it was an easy call. There are 4 songs that have guitar,
Mm.
and there's four different guitarists. Of course, on Tomland we
Okay.
have Miles Shawn, and on Nightflower, we have George Tickner, who
Mm.
is, I must speak about him briefly. He and I go way back, long before Journey.
Mm-hmm.
George was an original member and a major contributor to early Journey music.
Okay.
And George and I worked later on in the 90s, and Night Flower is the song I brought forward. So George is on guitar on that song. And then for Lowrider and Incident in Nishibor, we have another fine, seasoned musician, Vernon Black,
Okay.
who lives locally, and so he performed guitar on that. And believe it or not, the fourth guitarist is me for the first time,
Wow.
for Windmill, because Windmill. Wild Kingdom, I wrote on keyboards. Windmill, I wrote on guitar. So I
Mm.
actually ended up uh, dusting my chops off and recording the guitars, the acoustic guitar and the electric guitars for Windmill. So there is an example of, in terms of drummers, which drummer is best for that song. And I was just so happy and fortunate that these people were available in and about their very busy careers. There's another fine musician to mention here, and he appears quite prevalently in the recordings, and he's quite versatile. That is Mark Russo,
Mm-hmm.
who has been of the Doobie Brothers fame for decades, but he
Correct.
is initially a fine jazz musician,
Okay.
having formed years ago the Yellow Jacket, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And Mark appears all over the album on alto sax. Um, and Carl Perazzo appears on what, 4 or 5 of the songs. So I might take this time to describe the layers of
Yeah.
concentration. My music begins with my compositions that I have cooperated with Eric
Mm-hmm.
Levy on keyboards to arrange, and I co-produce he co-produces with me, and there's the third person who is the man behind the curtain who provided the mixing and the recording of this, and that is Jacob Stowe. So
Okay.
there are the three of us as a core. But then you
Mm,
take one step beyond that musically. For this album, certainly Carl Perazzo plays a major influence and a major inspiration for completing these things. And then
amazing.
the next most involved person would be uh, Mark Russo.
Mm,
So I'm describing different musicians for different songs. And as I continue to record more material, there are yet more musicians involved with the project. So if anybody's wondering, is this it? No, there's more music to catch up with and more
yeah.
new music to record.
Mm. Well, speaking about Miles Shawn, I'm sure you've seen him grow up as a kid, right?
Yes,
So
pretty much. Yes.
if you had to contrast his evolution as a musician and what makes him unique and how is he different from his father?
Well, you would say the difference right off the bat is their age, but there's something in the blood, there's something in the genetics,
Okay.
certainly, about musical talent.
Mm.
Musical talent certainly can be developed, but it's almost like it's innate. It's something a part of the DNA,
Mm-hmm.
and then the rest of it would be environmental. Miles and his father come from a musical family. Neil's father was a multi instrumentalist, a band leader. Neil's mother was a singer,
Correct.
and so, not unlike what how I've described my musical family,
Mm.
it's just the perfect setting and the perfect environment to develop music. How would I contrast them? Um, that would be hard to say because Neil has developed his own unique style and centered around, and for the most part, how he's very expressed with Journey's music.
Mm-hmm.
Miles grew up not only being influenced by that and by his father, but uh, taking on other styles and playing with. It has to do with how many people you play with and how broad uh, the selections are. So uh, they have similar paths but different paths. But there's something about them both that's very powerful and brilliant, if I
Amazing.
might say.
Amazing. Do you feel you've received the recognition you deserve for your work?
Well, in the past, and as for most of my lifetime as a member of the band, I think I have received certainly enough recognition, and my part in that, and my part in how we've done with popular music is in a supportive, foundational way.
Mm.
Not necessarily as a soloist and
Yeah, yeah.
being a virtuoso. It's in terms of being reserved
Correct.
and to the point in providing rhythmic and tonal foundation for the music. Um, I think I've gotten plenty of recognition for that. And not that I need recognition for what I'm doing now, but now with my music, I'm spreading out, playing other instruments, but how I'm applying bass or bass guitar to the current music is a little more spread out. Um, it would be nice to be recognized for the variety of music that I'm
Mm-hmm.
presenting. But more important to me is that people have a chance to hear it.
Mm.
You know, this, I'm not motivated in a career sense here. I'm motivated not only to complete the music and continue to do so, but to present it so that people have the opportunity to hear it. So I am I'm set up and the infrastructure of my project is business structure, but it's
Yeah.
not about being in business. I I don't expect to become wealthy again by my efforts. It's all about
Mm.
sharing the music and in one sense giving back what I've been given.
Were you ever concerned about being pigeonholed as a rock musician with the Journey Association? Ever in your
Uh,
career?
no, and
Mm,
simply because I'm one of the few people in that greater organization over the years that was
right.
not concerned about being a solo artist and being able to be expressive in a different way. That
Mm,
never bothered me. Not at all. And the way I've sort of come out of the box here is I think is the way to do it. Okay. My career and my life with Journey is complete. And what's left is all the other influences and all the other talents that I believe I have nothing to do with popular music.
mm,
For the most part, I'm feeling successful and having the freedom to express all these other musical approaches and all these other musical ideas. So I wasn't concerned about pigeonhole because I have been the supporting bassist and background vocalist. There's no pigeonholing. There's a definite function and value to being an accompanist and a supporting player. And now I have the freedom to be approaching musically a different approach on my instrument, and certainly being a writer. Um, that's fine. But you know what? There are two aspects of Journey's history that
mm-hmm,
relate directly to what I'm doing now. Early Journey in the San Francisco music scene in the early 70s. As you recall, the first two or three albums were very experimental. It was
mm,
fusion. It was more instrumentally oriented, and
correct.
the band at the time, and we were substantially successful with that.
Mm,
If you want to put a dollar sign on it, but it
yeah,
we we simply were presenting what the sum total of our influences and fusing these songs and these styles together. That's pretty much what I'm doing now. um, there's another project, and thanks to a digital distribution, this album can be found easily in 1979 or early 80.
mm-hmm,
Um, the band, which at the time included Greg Raleigh, Steve Smith, Neil Sean,
correct.
um, uh, as Steve Perry and myself, we were invited by CBS Sony
Mm,
to actually create and record a soundtrack for a film.
okay.
And it was done in cooperation with CBS, Sony, and Toho, which is the major uh, centuries old film distributor. And the album that resulted as our of our creating a soundtrack is called Dream After Dream,
Mm-hmm,
and it's a it was this the storyline was based on an ancient Japanese myth, and it was
mm,
written and produced and directed by an Italian director. Uh, the acting was by French actors, and it was filmed in Spain. Okay.
wow,
Anyhow,
wow.
not much came of this movie, but
Mm,
Journey in its uh, focused effort to develop a popular signature in our music, which continued. In this case, it was a complete freedom for everybody to bring their personal influences to write and record music that suited the film. So it was like returning to early Journey.
mm,
As it was experimental. And so, in both cases, I was more of a contributing writer and player, uh, not as opposed to, but different than my function as an accompanist for the popular music, which is the majority of Journey's music. So no pigeonholing problem. I am blessed.
amazing. As we speak about the good old times in the 70s,
Yes,
within an entity like Journey, uh, how was the creative and decision making process in terms of the very first album from 1975? What can you recall from that?
this takes us back to the very beginning of our interview and talking about
Yeah.
Herbie Herbert. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
this is a
Mm-hmm.
little history how it happened. Um, Neil Sean and Greg Raleigh had been with Santana, of course, Greg Raleigh having been a founding member of that.
Mm-hmm.
And I had, um, at the time, had been starting my greater career as a member of the Steve Miller Band, and Herbie and some of his associates had been working with Santana and providing sound production, and then Herbie began being more involved with the management of Santana,
Okay.
and then Greg Raleigh and Neil Sean and Herbie all left that organization, and I completed my term, so to speak, with Steve Miller Band. And it was Herbie's idea to bring these musicians who were free and available to try something. So he put Greg Raleigh, Neil Sean, and myself together with George Tickner, who I'd been working with for a matter of years.
Mm-hmm.
And we brought in Prairie Prince as the drummer. So the experiment began by someone influencing those five people to set up their gear in one room and see what happens.
Mm.
Okay, so that in itself was experimental. The concept early on was that here are a bunch of versatile players who could, you know, cover the bases with many styles of music, I would like to think. And the concept was to provide it for the San Francisco environment a rhythm section for artists who were very attracted to coming to San Francisco to write and record. So something like the Wrecking Crew, et cetera, to provide a band to complement an artist's recording. But it quickly developed into what became Journey,
Mm-hmm.
and was remained for a while very eclectic, experimental. You know, as I mentioned earlier, the music was a fusion of so many styles that all of us brought to the table.
Can you also speak a little bit about the creative freedom you've experienced within this group and the diverse roles and tonal possibilities your instrument brought to this music of Journey?
Well, yeah, and for me, it relates to not only the creation of that soundtrack, but to, again, to the early days of Journey, where everybody brought their own compositional ideas and brought their musical abilities, and that was more of a melting pot in the beginning. So,
Mm, mm,
uh, and there was so much that happened just intuitively. People could relate to the different styles that everybody brought to the table. I don't know how else to describe it other than what I already have. Everybody had song ideas, and in some cases, the music just happened. Nobody had an intent to do a lot. Many of these songs in the early Journey began as a result of just jamming and
hmm.
then solidifying the best parts, the best sections of these songs, and they became recorded that way.
Got it. Journey lineups are known for their volatility. Could you speak a little bit about that?
And in some cases, that's easy to answer. The music evolved,
Mm-hmm.
and some players were best suited for the main theme of the music. Yeah, there's some areas there that I should be careful in talking about when it comes to relationships and business and politics and all that. That don't want to get myself in trouble, but um, I could say that as the music evolved, uh, the personnel evolved too. The personnel would change as the music changed. I think that's the best way to describe it. Um,
Could you give me an example?
Overall, yes. For instance, the band began with George Tickner and Prairie Prince
Yes.
with the rest of us, and Prairie had already a career in art and was already a founding member of the Tubes. So it was difficult for us to continue without him. So
Mm,
we went and looked for a drummer and fortunately found the very versatile and talented Ainsley Dunbar.
mm,
Yeah. George, for instance, as an example, was not particularly a performer. He was a fine player and certainly a very unique writer. So his ability to continue performing with the band was a disadvantage.
In terms of this context, journey, uh, what determined the moment when a solo took shape or when a musician chose to break away from the compositional flow? How would you cue yourselves in?
Well, sometimes that could have been difficult.
Hmm.
And breakaway, like I said, practically every member of the band, current and past, has had a solo career,
Mm.
except for myself. Um, and uh, it's hard to describe without getting in again to the politics of the past, which for the most part, I would want to leave in the past with respect to everyone. That gets involved as to how solo careers and the band's career mix or don't mix. I'll also leave that one alone.
All right, all right. I completely respect that.
Yes, yes, and I really appreciate the fact that we're able to bring forward maybe some insight
Yeah,
in Journey's history to your audience,
of course.
and the fact that I've been so happy and blessed for having been a part of that for so many years, and
Yeah.
I'm especially honored that you have listened to and delved deeply into my very eccentric solo project.
Hmm.
I have friends and associates and family members who really enjoy what I'm doing, but I have found out recently, Aditya,
Hmm.
that most of them, maybe because none of us have time, we're bombarded with data, but most of them are unaware of the depth of what I'm presenting. Some people have heard the music,
Hmm.
but they're unaware of my YouTube site. And that's one place where I really concentrate my efforts. And I should point out to your audience that the best way to see and hear everything of what I've presented here is to go to rossvalory.com.
Okay.
ROSSVALORY.com. And what you will find there is every link required to go anywhere, but especially click on the YouTube link. And once you go to my channel, one will not only be able to listen to the entire
Yeah.
album for
Yeah.
free on
Yeah.
the audio end, you'll be able to see to date 6 music videos by Michael Cotton. And
Hmm.
eventually, by the time the year is finished, there'll be a music video for every track from the album.
My goodness.
And something we haven't talked about, and I can't say that you may not be aware of it, I've also released 4 video performance
Yes.
clips, and there will be more of those. So, a
Nice.
lot of people have asked me, "Gee, if from the get go, from the very beginning of my release, people understandably yes, when are you going to play out?" Well, so far I just haven't got plans for that. It's not to say that I won't, but that is an entirely different endeavor. It requires a completely different staff and production crew and infrastructure. Whereas I'm very happy now for pretty much the first time in my life to be creating and arranging and recording material in one place without going anywhere. I'm not opposed to playing out, but I have no plans so far. So, in lieu of that, I've decided to play in. So, my 4 performance videos that are available on my YouTube site represent me bringing in musicians that
Yeah.
are available and having fun playing right in my studio soundstage, not unlike Daryl's house. His, yeah, not unlike. I mean, it's the same, or
Yeah.
Tiny Desk, but
Yeah.
it's a little bigger than Tiny Desk. But the idea is in this modern day, you don't necessarily have to, put equipment in a truck and go to a venue and perform. You can
Mm.
do it right on the net. And once again, that's not to say that I won't. It's just that I don't have any plans to perform yet. But I thought it'd just be important to run that by you and your audience that
Yes.
everything that represents my activity and that which I've brought to the world in the last year, it can all be found on my YouTube site.
Superb. What are your core motivations as a musician today?
Yes, well, and I probably should just reiterate what I've been saying. First of all, my music, my genre, as I present myself now, is no genre.
Mm.
That's unconventional, possibly bold, but and I think it's a likely unique approach, except for, gee, as if I could mention myself in the same breath. Unconventional, anything goes, no genre. Frank Zappa, Harry Nilsson,
Mm.
things like that. So the idea is there's no boundary, there's
Okay.
no concern about building a target market.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, I do what I do and I present it that way. And what is my intention? I'll reiterate what I've said earlier. I'm not in business to be
Mm.
in business. I'm in business because I have a business structure in order to keep things organized and to account, and especially to protect my trademark and to protect the artwork and the music. Otherwise, it's not about carving out another career in the music business for me, and it's not necessarily about making money. It's about having been blessed with the freedom to create and to share it with people. It's just as simple as that. Now, gee, if I make money with it, I'm certainly not going to complain.
Mm-hmm.
Um, if I were able to break even according to expenses and investment, I would be more than pleasantly surprised. So, as to your point, my intentions are is to just share uh, other aspects of my musical life that most people don't know about, and to make it available to them.
Got it.
And obviously, all of this involves commerciality. Just to get my music on the internet for people to hear requires that I sell it and they buy it. Now, whether I make money off of it is another thing. Forget about it. But that's the intent. Is just um, to give back what I've been given.
Amazing. I would like to talk about something lighter, which is your passion for photography. So, could you speak a little bit about your passion for photography and how's it going in terms of that?
Yeah, yeah, well, yes, 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 yes. Uh, I have been an amateur photographer for decades, but I can't not say that I consistently pursued that. But as it is with a lot of people in the world, with the advent of smartphones and the further development of optics and digital photography and available. It's just this little phone. I first got an iPhone probably 15 years ago, and it was very convenient for me
Mm-hmm.
to actually pop out and first clean the lenses. People, that's the first thing you do is clean your lenses. And there's been so many opportunities for me to capture what I see without any great amount of detail, simply frame what I see and capture it. And I really enjoy it. I can't say that I have a lot of skill with it, but I'm able to frame and capture certain things that are striking to me, and it's I'm very happy that you brought that up. I have quite a stash of photographs, and I've only begun to release some of those on social media,
Yeah,
and
I
I'll be
did
glad.
stumble upon them. Yeah, of course.
Right, and my favorite, of course, is landscape.
Mm.
Landscape photography. And I do a bit of travel in the natural environment. I do like to spend time on the California coast, which lends itself to being photographed. But I'm also and have been for many years a part of of a group of people that goes deep into the desert and desert camping almost yearly. And there's so much to enjoy out there. And I've just been able to capture a lot of these magical scenes with a great amount of ease with a simple iPhone. I've yet to really take the time to move forward and get some more refined photographic equipment. But for what little I've had to work with, I'm pretty happy with some of the shots, and I'll be glad to release more on social media. Eventually, at my website, rossvalory.com, I will create a tab and just put up a gallery of many, many more of the photographs that I'm happy with. This is the first time, not the
Okay.
last time.
That's
Thank you,
very
my
nice of
friend.
you. Take care.
Good
Have a nice day.
goodbye, lovely people.
Bye.